What is a high body count to you in terms of women?
15.
Fifth. Okay, let's start.
15.
I don't know, maybe 10.
You guys mind sharing your body counts? How many men you've been with? Here goes the silence. Sophie, what's your body? Be honest.
I think somewhere around 35.
Okay, at 27.
Yeah.
Okay.
4.
Okay, so 19, 4.
11.
How old are you? 30.
Yeah.
10, including my fiance.
And how old are you?
25.
Looking at these numbers, and I'm assuming you guys are being honest, all of you guys, in most men's eyes, have too high body counts.
Well, I had 3 before I met my boyfriend, and he was fine with it.
Right. You are the.
Here's what I don't understand. Why is it anybody's business how many people you slept with? I mean, unless you're directly in a relationship with that person. You know, like, that's kind of weird. You know, I came off of the whole thing with Kevin Samuels. That's when the manosphere popped off for me. And it's very intriguing because it's good that men have a platform to say what they want, to say what their preferences are, when women are free to do that. But I always just found it a bit cringy when the dudes that are claiming they're the Kevin Samuels copycats coming out and the first thing are like, what's your body count? And it's like, why? That's such a low class thing to ask someone. What's your body count? What's your bank account? You know, that's as rude as a woman going up to a guy and asking him that. And it's private. The thing is, people share a little bit too much on social media nowadays. Like, I get when people are trying to be edgy and funny, but there are like certain details that nobody needs to know. That's not something that people should be privy to. And notice, maybe I'm wrong, but I have never heard Kevin Samuels, the Godfather, ever ask a woman that. Of all of the women I've watched, I believe most of his shows, or most of his episodes, I even watched the ones when he was doing that with men. He never, as far as I know, asked another woman what her body count was. He would ask her how much she weighed. And yes, you're calling in on the show and you're asking for advice. So he's trying to give them a reality check of, okay, if you weigh this much, you need to get your stuff in order. Why would you expect a man that is this when you're not what he would pick most of the time? But he doesn't ask them, hey, how many people did you sleep with? That's like I don't know. It just feels very inappropriate to ask people that. And the things that people just go up and ask people nowadays is just wild to me. Like people going up and asking people, who'd you vote for? None of your goddamn business. There's certain things that should be kept private, you know? Like it's just rude. Do people not have class anymore? And here's the thing, right? Like, yeah, I'll admit that people having like 100 bodies, that's wild. But we live in a society. We live in a society where unless you're like a hyper religious person, women have sex too. Women like to have sex. And if everybody's going through high school, I can't personally relate to that, but I understand there are people who are in high school, your hormones are raging, and if you're an extrovert or you're somebody who is very social and not shy, you're going to be going from one relationship to the next. You're going to be, oh, I'm so in love with this girl, I'm so in love with this guy. It doesn't work out. Then you go to another person, then you go to another person. By the time you leave high school, you probably have 12 bodies. So do the dudes. Are women supposed to just sit down there and not be human? Like apes, primates, I think, in general, are very promiscuous. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any self-control, because if you're just blasting everywhere, there needs to be a little self-control, but I understand people needing to explore. If I was more brave, I probably would have done that, but like I fall in love with people and then I never talk to them. But I understand, because that was on my mind all the time. Like it was like almost impossible to concentrate on school, because then you're like, ooh, and then the guys are coming up to you, and then it's like, but I was also very terrified of getting pregnant. Like and then my mom didn't make it. She's like, it's a cultural thing with us. And she's like, if you come back here pregnant, I will fucking kill you. Like, so that scared the shit out of me. And I was already scared of my mom because of shit that was happening at home. But to be fair, she was only saying that because it's a cultural thing. But knowing my mom, you know, we had to sit down. She's like, you know, in all seriousness, if that does happen, I don't want you to run away from home. I would be very upset and I would kick your ass, but you're a woman now and I would help you to a point to get to that point where you become a mother and take care of your child. But I was terrified because I had no way of getting rid of it if I wanted to, or I couldn't just go out and buy protection, but then you had to be resourceful. Anyway, I don't know. I just think it's a very bad precedent when women are shamed for sleeping with people. It's like, and it's a ridiculous too. There's some people who are like, 3 is too much. What if they were long-standing relationships you had with the guy and the guy slept around and dumped her and she's like, okay, I guess I'll move on. And the other guy cheats on her and she moves on to another person, and then by her 5th person, she stays with that guy or she goes with that guy, and he's like, what's your body count? And she's like, well, I've had 5 relationships before you. Nah, you're a slut. Like, what? Body counts always mean someone is going around and sleeping with a bunch of people. Here's the thing that people don't realize, right? here's why I think the whole thing of asking people what their body count is so freaking ridiculous. It's not just rude, but it's ridiculous. Because did you ever once consider that if a woman is very promiscuous, that she could lie? Like, why would you even ask her a body count when she can freaking lie? If they get wise and they're like, well, guys don't want us if we have high body counts, I'll just say, well, I had 3 or I had 2. There's no way of you knowing this for sure, unless you have video evidence of other guys having done her. So why would you even ask? Vet the person. Have you also considered that there are some women that a lot of those body counts, like me, were not consensual because they happened when you were a child? A lot of women don't want to talk about that. I'm not the only one. I'm more open about it, but there are a lot of women who aren't, you know? There are a lot of women who their uncles and men, when they were children, did that shit to them. And that's where most of that is coming from. I don't know if they would count that, but I mean, losing it at 4, as I did, should that count? Is it really anybody's business? I share it because I like making people aware. My parents weren't aware, and I like people who are watching to be more aware that this shit happens. And most of the people I talk to that went through what I went through, their family doesn't know. It happened right under their nose, and they don't know what to look for. So that's why I'm personally open about it, because I want parents to be more aware. That's why. But most people don't share that. So it's not just like a blanket, hey, you got this amount of people that you've been with, and now you're just a disgusting person. I will admit that there is some truth. There's some women that are just chasing this feeling, and they're going from man to man to man to man to man to man to man, and they just are so absorbed with chasing the feeling that they no longer see the people as people. When you just like guys, if you have a guy that has a very high body count and he's just used to screwing females left, I don't get the people who are like, oh, I'm ready to settle down. He's ready to settle down now. I hate to tell you this, men or women, if you had a guy that was promiscuous, I don't mean just have a high body count, I mean like, oh, he had a lot of relationships that failed. I mean somebody who was casually like just chasing that feeling, like an exorbitant amount. There's a chance that they may not want to settle down. They may fall in love with you and they'll want to be with you for a while, but because they're so used to hopping from person to person, just rapid fire, chances are they're gonna get bored. The reason why they probably have as much people as they do is because they're bored, or something in them that is messed up that requires them needing to chase that feeling. A guy that's used to having a lot of women, I'm sorry, he's never gonna just be happy with one. Maybe for a little while, and then he's gonna remember, look, all those women I used to fuck, you know, like, he's gonna want that. A girl who's had lots of men, and she's used to jumping from person to person, she's gonna get bored, she's gonna have a good dude, and she's gonna be like, nah, I'm bored, I want it, because that's her go-to. That is her habit, and it's hard to break that. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, you just said it's nobody's business, but now you're saying it is an issue. Yes, it's nobody's business. You shouldn't go up and ask people that. That's very rude. It's a private thing, unless they decide, like, these people to come on there. I think you shouldn't be sharing that shit, and I think people, it's rude for you to ask. If they want to share it, whatever, but it's rude for you to go up and ask someone that. Like, I could never see me going up to a dude, regardless if I like him or not, and just asking him, yo, how many bodies you got, bro? How many women have you bed? Like, what? Unless this is a world where we're holding human beings as cattle and we need to know how many women are potentially pregnant or how many females have been mounted, I don't see why there's relevance to that question, especially when people have a propensity to lie. There's no way of you actually knowing. It just comes off as very rude. I think there are other ways to vet people. Date the person. First of all, ask around. I don't know why people don't do this, but ask people. The first thing I do, I fantasize about people, like when I had a crush on someone, I would watch that person. Their body language, maybe their personality would draw me in first, maybe their looks would draw me in first. But if I see a behavior before I even talk to them that turns me off, I'm like, ugh, nah. I'm not interested. Save myself a lot of time. Cracks still show through, but it does save a lot of time when you just gather information on the person. I know people can do it with social media now, so it makes it a little bit easier, but see how that person is with their friends, observe them, hear what people say about them, get to know them yourself. It's not a bad thing that while you're getting to know someone, then you can have those casual conversations, but going up to random strangers that you don't plan on dating and just off the bat be like, yo, what's your body count? It's just very low class to me. I don't know. Very, very low class. And since people can lie, like I said, you need to find other ways of sussing those people out. You know, maybe I don't like playing games with people, but sometimes if you want to protect yourself, girls do it all the time. As a guy, you can shit test them. See what they do and see if it lines up with your lifestyle. If she's going out with her booty cheeks outside and you don't like that, you're not comfortable, then tell her. Don't just be like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to seem too clingy. No, say something. And if she's like, well, it's my body, I get to do whatever I want, then you're like, okay, fair enough. And then you leave. You don't wait because you're like, well, I don't want her to break up with me because I won't have vagina. No, then you're gonna have a world of hurt. The people who are like that are probably not for you anyway. You can have a casual fling, but just understand that you probably can't take this person seriously. And it's gonna be an even bigger headache. People will show their colors later. Say from the jump, like these are the things I don't like. And if you break these deals, if these are deal breakers for me, I'm out. Don't be afraid to walk away. That's the problem with a lot of men and women. Whenever they find someone who socially is on a higher tier, they're scared of leaving that person. I was that naive person too, because even though I'm pretty, I had very low self-esteem because I was bullied. So most popular guy in school who I didn't even like at first, I liked the other dude. And then this dude came up when he saw me liking the other dude and then he tried to court me. And he's like, well, I'm his friend. I'll help you. I'll help introduce you to him. Then he starts hitting on me. Then I fell in love with him. And after he did all those horrible things to me, I still stayed with him because I was so in love with him. Like a freaking jackass. And not willing to walk away because I had no experience whatsoever. And I thought when you really love someone, you try to make it work. I was dumb. I was dumb and inexperienced, and after that having happened for a little while, you walk away. You learn that, all right, thank you for hardening my heart. It was all tender before, but now I know I have to guard it. Your heart is precious. Your time is precious. If you're a man or a woman, especially if you're a woman, I'm sorry, there's a little bit of double standard there. Women literally cannot afford to waste time because if you're planning on having kids, I personally don't want them. I know that for certain. But if you're planning on having kids later on, you have a very limited window. So if you want a stable family for your child, you don't have as much time to fuck around and find out. It just is what it is. You need to understand that. So you can afford to play all those games, but you don't have the luxury of doing it for a long time as much as the men do. It sucks. There are certain things that women have in terms of privilege, and I guess we're more of a commodity because our beauty, as people know it, and our fertility doesn't last forever. Men's beauty doesn't last forever and their fertility doesn't either, but you know what happens? They have more time. They can continue to still make babies. Even if their fertility drops, it's still possible for them to spit out babies, spit out batter to make babies. And you can have the ugliest dude, and if he has resources, women will still get with him because they want stability for their children. So they have an up when it comes to that. The downside is they have to be the ones to put themselves in danger and take all the shit that comes with that. So it's like both of the sexes have cons and pros, and those work together. And I think that people doing talk shows like this, I mean, it's not bad in and of itself, but they're trying to rip off of Kevin Samuels, and they're missing the whole point of why he started what he did. They're trying to capitalize on sensationalizing, look at these OF sluts, and you are gaping the divide between the two bridges, or between the two cliffs, even more. Kevin Samuels was trying to put it together. He was trying to show women, hey, you don't understand us as much as you think you do. You want this, but we want this. That's what Kevin was doing. Don't agree with everything that he said, but for the most part, his message was, wake up, women. You've been fed a lie. You really want to be happy? Men really want to be happy. This is what men actually want. This is how you actually get men and be happy. You may not get the top 2%, and if you want that, just understand that this is the kind of lifestyle you're going to be getting with this guy. You're not going to get romance and love. He's going to screw around with other women because that's really how it works. It just is what it is. That's the reality of it. And he came from a place of elegance and class. And the people who are doing this now, like, yo, what's your body count, bro? Just to get views and clicks. You see in their comment section, it's filled with little boys and people saying, yeah, look at them, sluts. Yeah, hey, all of them. And these are the same people that can't get a girlfriend. So now they're feeding that hatred, and it just makes them more mad because, oh my God, women have sex. Like, you're not having any sex whatsoever, but you're dogging on women for having sex or for being sexual beings. If we weren't sexual beings, we wouldn't sleep with you. So what do you want? I just think it's stupid. I think a lot of, not saying everyone's like that, but there are a lot of these discount manosphere people who are doing more damage to men and women because you're making these men angry, and it's no different than the radical feminists that are coming out and saying, look at what men do, see? and they're only choosing situations with their confirmation bias and making men out, very natural parts of men, they're making it out to be horrible. And that turns more women off to men because now women see it, they think it's all men. And the same thing the other way around with people who are on the other end of the spectrum of radical feminists, which, you know, they call them red pill. I think I've now personally observe that there's a disparity between manosphere content and red pill content. Red pill content used to be an offshoot of manosphere content. You basically take the red pill and you wake up and try to make yourself better and not bow down to these bitches. That's basically what the whole motto was. But now red pill has become synonymous with people like Fresh and Fit, who are still incels at heart, just with more money and doing the very things that they're calling everybody else stupid for doing, like busting up an escort and not being able to discern when a woman is a prostitute. But then, on top of that, firing shots at their fans for calling them out, but they don't even just yell at their fans. They say, that's why y'all are fat losers and blah, blah, blah. Like, you're gonna attack your fans for calling you out on your hypocrisy? That, to me, that's not manosphere. Those are not high class, high value men. Those are just boys that were still upset because girls didn't like them in high school, and that became their whole identity, so now they're rage baiting people. That's what that is. And they bring on the dumbest women, some of them, which subsequently feeds the confirmation bias of women all being disgusting. And so when you look at the world through that lens, all men are evil, all women are sluts, all this is that, then you're only ever going to see that. And you're going to maybe one day run into someone who is not like that and fumble the bag because you have that lens on of hatred. So I don't know. I think the whole conversation needs to change. I think people need to go back and watch Kevin Samuels' old videos. I think if he was still alive, he would be even bigger than he was because I don't think he would call out people. I mean, he would. He's very classy. He never called out people by name, but he would call out men with action, like, or with his words. Like, yeah, you have people on here saying such and such and such, and that's not cool. He called out men too. People tend to forget this. But before he had the podcast set up to help women, he was doing exactly the same thing to dudes. Dudes would call him for advice, and he would ask them a bunch of uncomfortable questions, and he would say, why do you expect a woman to like you when you're not even this, bro? Get it together. Like, I've seen those, but nobody cares about those. It only became popular because women took an issue with him being truthful in the same way he was being with dudes. Everyone just sweeps that under the rug, but how dare he? How dare he say this with women? And I think it also got popular because men were like, oh my God, we can't say stuff like this, because if we say the same thing equivalent to what a woman would say, we would get fired from our jobs and the internet would drag us, and it's kind of messed up. People should be able to talk with each other back and forth without shaming the other person. Everyone's lifestyle is not for anyone. I personally wouldn't want a dude that's been with a bunch of different women just from experience. They are not faithful. They're unstable. It's just, nah. I think if that's your lifestyle and you want to continue having a bunch of concubines, then just have concubines. Don't get married and ruin someone else's life. Stay single and just have a harem. I respect dudes that do that. But these dudes that are like, man, I want a wife now because I think that's what I should do, and you actually get a good woman, and then you cheat on her because you don't have any self-control, and you're used to this habit of covering every woman you see, then the woman gets bitter because she grew up culturally to respect her man, and she did all of that, gave her heart to him, gave her body to him, gave her time that she can never get back, her youth, and then this dude does this, then she becomes bitter, and she's like, you know what, fuck all men. Then she goes and she's like, why should I be a good girl if I just get punished for it anyway? So she sleeps with a bunch of people and then breaks other people's hearts, and then those men are like, see, this is why I don't like these bitches, but it's the dudes that are also doing it. Like, so it's the snake eating its tail kind of situation with men and women. The men are complaining, look at these women, blah, 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 but yet you're giving money to them. You're getting upset that they're OF fans, but you're paying them. You're giving them your time. You're mad at girls being sluts and having a bunch of bodies, but you're sleeping with a bunch of women and being their body. You're making fun of single mothers, but yet you're blasting up in people raw and making them single mothers. You're creating the monster, or you have created the monster that is now trying to eat your ass, and you're like, where did this monster come from? How could this happen? You're creating it. And the same thing with women. You're like, look at how the men hate us. Look at what they're doing. But look at how you're treating them. And then when they try to communicate with you, you say men don't communicate with you. But when they do try to communicate with you, you shut them down and call them incel. And yes, some of them are. But if they're saying something like, hey, I prefer this, I don't like this, and you shame them for that and call them names just because they're communicating their preferences, which you're freely able to do, do, then you get mad at them when they lash out. I think both of the sexes need to take a chill pill for real. You all want to fuck each other, so I don't know why you're fighting. Like, no other animal in the kingdom. Okay, well, maybe praying mantis and like black widows and stuff. But you know what? Respect for them, because they know what it is. The man knows, the black widow knows to be afraid of the woman because he could get eaten. And he is willing to sacrifice himself or put himself in danger to bust a nut. And he's like, you know what? Shit, my head's getting eaten right now. This is very painful, but at least I'm still inside. I'm still inside going. This is like the best and worst way to die. And at least my babies will go forth, and if they're boys, they will have the same fate as me. That's more important to them. Whatever. And the Black Widow woman is sucking her fingers, licking them. This is so freaking good. Sex and a meal. This is the best. That works. But they're also freaking spiders. So I don't know. I don't know how we got here. Yeah. Moral of the story though, women, don't go up and ask a guy what your bank account is. It's very rude. And dudes, don't go up and ask a woman, yo, what's your body count? It's very fucking rude. Learn some class.